I feel like this is one of those wacky anime abilities where you're gonna have some villain who, after so many years of planning, can say, "Ha ha! I've developed the ultimate technique where I can both laugh and cry at the same time." And I know that kind of seems useless for anime villains, but somehow they're gonna spin it to be ridiculously overpowered. I feel like one of those anime villains, because after watching the latest episode of Demon Slayer, ha ha! I feel like I can laugh and cry at the same time. In fact, I may have been. Now, anime has a lot of highs, and it's why I've stuck to the fandom for such a long time. However, there is one thing that did not happen to me recently. I did not freaking squeal with tears in my eyes from both sadness, happiness, and excitement over an anime episode like I did several days ago. Now, being that I read a lot of manga to keep up with all of the series I love, you know, Attack on Titan, One Piece, My Hero Academia, Black Clover, Seven Deadly Sins, Berserk, whenever it comes out with a new chapter. Rest in peace, Berserk. I don't feel like the moments that I've read in the manga, when animated, really hit me that hard. Nothing hit me like this past episode of Demon Slayer, episode 19. In fact, it was so good, and not only in my imagination, that it was trending on Twitter in the US. You got freaking Ninja tweeting that Demon Slayer is his favorite anime of all time, and while he's objectively wrong, that is high freaking praise. Ninja, if you want to get on the Rant Cafe Podcast, definitely hit me up. If you have not yet watched Demon Slayer, there will be slight spoilers to one certain fight in one certain episode in this video. It will definitely get you to want to watch Demon Slayer, so it's not really a major spoiler plot-wise or character development-wise. It's a pretty heavy punch that if you are watching the series, I suggest you watch that episode and get back to me, but if you're not watching it, this will be the prompt you need. I wanted to use this anime in particular to talk about how to overpower an overpowered opponent. Being that I have all these Overpowered Done Right episodes on my channel talking about various overpowered characters, I feel like this is a very important topic to cover, and this is the perfect metaphor to cover it. So, trying to keep up with the Nux Taku lore, if this video gets over 50,000 likes, the next OP analysis will be out within a week. God, what am I doing to myself? While Seven Deadly Sins Season 2 was airing, I made a video how to overpower an overpowered opponent, Escanor versus Estarossa, and that is an entirely different ballgame. He, being Escanor, overpowered Estarossa because Escanor was way stronger. He wasn't some underdog coming back. It was absolutely epic, and it was one of the greatest flexes of all time. Trust me, I've become a master in the subject of anime flexing. But when it comes to the protagonist of a series, who's generally weaker than the super crazy overpowered villains they're facing, with wacky paradoxical abilities, like the ability to laugh and cry at the same time, you know, literally breaking the laws of nature. For the most part, no one expects the protagonist to win. That was a lie. Everyone expects the protagonists to win. But no one knows how the protagonist is gonna win. As I've mentioned in the past, the main issue with overpowered characters is that it's so hard to kill them off. Granted, it's wonderful to introduce them. Oh my god, the main character has to overcome the most massive obstacle of all time. How is he ever going to do this? Oh, it's because he's secretly a reincarnation of the Sage of Six Paths child, and now he's like infinitely strong, and so is his friend whose name does not rhyme with Schmaske, and whoopee, now they combine their powers, they can defeat their opponent. No, I'm not exactly talking about that. I'm not throwing shade at anything here, as I'm sure you could tell. I'm more throwing the question out there, how do we get a protagonist overpowering an overpowered opponent when the protagonist himself is not inherently overpowered? So, One Punch Man overpowering Boros? I wouldn't exactly consider Boros overpowered in the context of Saitama. I don't know, maybe that's just me. But for the vast majority of times a protagonist defeats a far superior adversary in strength, I'm upset about the power scaling of it all. I could name you a multitude of scenes where the protagonist should have lost, but sheer dumb luck, as well as a wee bit of plot armor intervened to give him the victory. Despite the fact that if done correctly, it could beat your feels as hard as you're beating your meat to that shiz. For the most part, it is done incorrectly. Luffy versus Katakuri and Naruto versus Pain are two massive outliers in this entire situation, each in their very own way, and each with hundreds of episodes of build-up to each of these fights respectively. Whereas, to get my point across, Kimetsu no Yaiba just did that in episode 19. Episode 19 was before the Zabuza arc ended, fam! Did I not stress that I recommend this anime to you? Because if not yet, I do! In our new wave of Shonen, and I mean, if you'd consider Naruto, One Piece, and Bleach a past generation, and a current generation would be more My Hero Academia, Black Clover, Seven Deadly Sins, and Kimetsu no Yaiba, they each have their own strengths in very separate ways. None of them manage to pull off overpowering and overpowered characters so nicely. The fact that our protagonist, Tanjiro, is built in a way also different than every other of these protagonists I've mentioned definitely sets the stage properly for a fight like this. Very often, we want our protagonist to be an underdog of sorts, which by default aligns the entire story through the guise of the protagonist's personal growth. Demon Slayer is not that. While Tanjiro starts off at the very bottom, it's not like his life aspirations is to get to the very top. So while the journey definitely does follow his growth and strength, it's not like that's the ultimate perspective of the narrative. Deku wanting to become the ultimate hero and Asta wanting to become the Wizard King sets the mood for the entire story, where their growth is the primary directive. And on their path to become great, they happen to bump into all these evil villains and these heroes and these support characters, each with their own dreams, and that's not the point. Since Tanjiro isn't purely a growth-oriented protagonist, all of the growth he does actually obtain is seen through an entirely different light. After his very kind and loving, close-bonded family is killed by demons, Tanjiro winds up becoming a demon slayer, not purely due to his own aspirations for revenge and whatnot. He's kind of pushed and prodded onto that journey, and it makes a man out of him. He was never that whiny bitch protagonist, and he was also never that super inspiring protagonist. So to phrase it in a slightly different light, unlike most main characters who visualize becoming the strongest as the end goal, for him, becoming the strongest is just the necessary tools to his end goal, i.e., eventually saving his sister, making her become human again, and other variations on this theme that he starts believing in and trying to accomplish throughout the story. And it's this simple difference in perspective that makes him stand out from other shonen protagonists. Because aside from that, if you look at the bare bones buildup of his character, he's not that different from your generic, extremely righteous good dude that wants to save everyone. In fact, he is a generic righteous good dude that wants to save everyone, but that's what makes him great. He wants to save everyone, and the theme of his character focuses on that more than on the personal goals. There's a selflessness to his priorities that most other protagonists do not share. While every protagonist is obviously going to be this super nice, wholesome dude that we can all relate to, except for Luffy and Gon, Asta wants to become the Wizard King for himself. Naruto wants to become the Hokage for himself. Deku wants to become the strongest hero for himself. It's true that a byproduct of this is helping everyone. Asta wants to become the Wizard King because he wants people to realize even though you're born without magic, you could still become something. Deku wants to become the greatest hero because he wants to be a pillar of hope for everyone. Naruto wants to become a Hokage so his village can rely on him. Granted, there are all wonderful ulterior goals to what they're actually trying to accomplish, but with Tanjiro, there is none of this self-beneficial shiz going on to confuse you from where his priorities actually lie. So when Tanjiro eventually becomes a demon slayer to protect his sister, it only makes sense that as he evolves and as he becomes more powerful, there's much more responsibility on his shoulders, so he can now widen this caring and widen this love to encompass more and more people. That's why he's the most morally righteous dude ever, and that's what makes him a great shonen protagonist. Naruto, Asta, and Deku more than once each exhibit these crazy, noble, morally righteous philosophies. And while that's all nice and dandy, it does not resonate as thematically with their character as when Tanjiro says the exact same thing. The foundation of his growth is built on this love, his protection, and his bond, not on his reaching some higher level of status so people can oogle and bloogle when they're like, holy flizzards, this dude's amazing. Now, this is not at all a side tangent. In fact, it very much is integral to what I'm trying to tell you about how to overpower an overpowered opponent, or at least how Demon Slayer did just that in the most feel-invoking way imaginable. Because this is anime, there's this one super evil enemy dude, and he has a group of the 12 Kizuku, because you know that an anime villain group is not going to get the street cred among the other anime villain groups unless they have a number telling the good guys exactly how many of them they are. We want to know that there's 9 Akatsuki, we want to know that there's 7 Warlords of the Sea, we want to know that there are 12 of these Kuzuki guys. I don't care what the hell their name is, it's irrelevant. Point is, they're considered the 12 strongest demons working under dude with a really Japanese name for a demon that I will not even try to pronounce. So immediately, the stakes are extremely high for this battle, and we know that the story will have to progress at a point. fight. Until here, we fought people making believe they were in the 12 Kizuki. We fought opponents that used to be in the 12 Kizuku. I'm gonna keep pronouncing it differently because one of these times I'm bound to get it correct. And now at last, we're reaching that finale, at least, of a certain chapter, where Tanjiro's going up against one of the actual 12, and we have to see what he's going to do muscling past that. Now, one issue with shonen protagonists, they tend to defeat really powerful opponents sometimes, and they shouldn't really be that level of strength. If these are the 12 strongest demons ever, why is novice McSchmostical Tanjiro Schmanjiro of the legendary school of water breathing, which is totally not based off Haman from JoJo's, it needs at least one JoJo reference to be classified as a top tier shonen, so respect, bruh. Why is he able to take them down? He's not even one of the highest level demon slayers. That means the highest level demon slayers will be way stronger than all of these guys. Well, for that, we need to push every emotional button we can to make Tanjiro not only at his peak, but to surpass his very limits at this very given moment. So, the bond that pushes Tanjiro forward in the story is easily defined as the bond he has with his sister. He turned his entire life upside down, and he's doing everything he can to A, protect her, and B, turn her back into a human. This goes both ways, of course, because like every bond, there needs to be a back and forth, and his sister saves his butt on multiple occasions. In fact, she saves him a good, solid 2 times in this very fight itself. So, of course, as a thematic opposite of that, the first adversary in the 12 Kizukuziku is this very odd breed of demon that actually has a family. It's unknown how that works. We have a lot of exploring into the psychology and genetics of what makes up demons in this story, which I personally find fascinating, but for some reason, there is a family going on here, and their bonds are not exactly made of what Tanjiro would be considered a familial bond. While Tanjiro would view a bond from a place of love, where out of love, everyone will do everything they can for one another, this adversary of his views it as a set of roles. The parents should protect the children, and the older siblings should protect the younger siblings. If one does not fulfill that role, well then, make them fear you, to submit to your majesty. I will not lie to you. When it first introduced that this is going to be the emotional wham that Tanjiro was going to be getting so that he can be like, hell no, fam! I'm going to hit you with not only my fat sword, but also my truths and ideals and my wonderful shonen speech that every shonen protagonist needs to give before finishing off an opponent. I was a little turned off. I understand the relevance of the situation, and I understand why exactly that was done, but at the same time, it almost felt corny. It felt so perfect to push Tanjiro to his limits. I was like, I don't know, fam. This is like too obvious. I don't know where they're going with this. It's like every shonen villain ever coincidentally has the completely opposite philosophy of the main character to get him riled up and unlock his 9-tailed fox chakra and destroy him, which is not exactly what happened here, but you get where I'm coming from. As I've mentioned though, Demon Slayer excels at the generic shonen formula, and despite the fact that I was spot on with my reasoning at first glance at, oh, typical demon good guy shonen dialogue thingo. Siblings are meant to fear you to obey you. No, siblings are out of love. Oh, how beautiful. In the end of the day, the way it's presented in Demon Slayer, where the generic story viewed from a different perspective can take a completely new light, because Tanjiro's not putting his life on the line to become the most powerful Demon Slayer, and also he cares a lot about his friends. He is putting his life on the line for his sister, and it's exactly that that's being threatened. It's not the halting of his journey. We saw by his final attack, he was running into his opponent, aware that even if his attack succeeds in defeating him, his opponent will slice him to bits and he will be destroyed. And it's not like it felt out of place in the slightest. This is the complete and utter motivation of our protagonist. Yes, he's a goody two-shoes, but at the same time, that is his entire mentality. And something else I'd like to mention before talking about why the finale of this fight was greatness is the supporting cast. And when I say supporting cast, I mean Tanjiro as the main character with the 2 ultimate support characters, Boreface and Lightning Pussy. Yes, those are not their accurate names. I know there's Enitu and Inosuke, but I don't really care because Boreface and Lightning Pussy are way more accurate and, to be honest, funnier. Now, even though this main trio is one of my favorite main trios in Shonen, I think it's my second favorite right after the Promised Neverland's Ray, Norman, and Emma, but for an entirely different reason. And I will not be talking about what Lightning Pussy or Boreface bring to the table by their own merit, and they bring a lot by their own merit. They're both fantastic characters in their own right, and I relate to Lightning Pussy on a spiritual level. Okay, that was the time I should have called him Zenitsu. Yeah, we'll stick with Lightning Pussy. But if you look at the 3 of them, Inosuke and Zenitsu are 2 complete extremes. Inosuke being the battle-hungry, courageous beast, but through his travels with Tanjiro, he's becoming more and more caring, and you have Zenitsu, a complete opposite extreme, as someone who's a complete complete and utter coward that's learning to man up, thanks to his interactions again with Tanjiro. Tanjiro is bringing them both to much more of a baseline, and he's evolving their crazy antics into something much more noble without losing their actual spunk that makes them both tremendously fun characters to observe. The dynamics between the three of them are absolutely fantastic, and whenever they're on screen, even during the slice of life-ish moments that every shonen has, I am gleeful with anticipation as to who will annoy who next. But the reason why I mention all of this is purely to talk about what it does for Tanjiro. Because you have two extremes surrounding him at all times, and you hear his input on everything they're doing, we get a much more narrowed down glance into the psyche of our actual protagonist. And it's accentuated again and again and again exactly the kind of person he is. I don't exactly want to draw comparisons here to other shonen protagonists, because I do know that it will inevitably get me hate that I'm ripping on Deku, Asta, and everybody else. That's really not what I'm trying to do here. Code of conduct number 1 for typical shonens: the protagonist's gonna have to be moral Jesus. And low-key, sometimes it kind of seems fake. It doesn't always fit with the character's narrative, but it does with Tanjiro. He's the only shonen protagonist that I appreciate as a moral Jesus, and it's because of his surroundings. It's because of his motivations for pushing forward, and it's exactly because of the people that are at complete extremes around him at all times, helping us focus on exactly the person he is. Moral Jesus done right. You heard it here, fam. And I think, in a nutshell, it's that genuine aspect to his character that gets us to fall in love with most of Demon Slayer. I feel like the actual narrative, as well as the characters' individual psychologies, are not all that intense. They're not super deep, and they're not crazy twisted. One of the reasons why I like Seven Deadly Sins is because every character's psychology is crazily twisted. But I've mentioned on my video that was talking about Demon Slayer right when it came out. In fact, I think it was like the only YouTuber that actually made a video on Demon Slayer right when it came out, aside from like the people that review every video. So I'm kind of proud of myself, patting myself on the back that I called it and that I was right. That video's focus was how simplicity is the hardest thing to master, and Demon Slayer goddamn mastered it. Everything about Demon Slayer, despite being straightforward, is done beautifully and honed to a peak. Every shonen protagonist is supposed to be a moral Jesus, but Tanjiro actually nails it in such an uncorny way. Zenitsu and Inosuke are such simple characters by their own right. I understand that they had different backstories that wound them up to become who they are, and different life experiences, trials and tribulations and shiz. I get it. I've seen shonen before. That's literally what's going on with everyone. But they don't have super deep trauma that's carrying them through their lives, that they're hiding and suppressing, that's making them different people with many different layers. It's the simplicity in their characters. How Zenitsu is a coward and how Inosuke is rash. They have the very simple quirks that make up who they are, but it's at its purest form. There's no contradictions in these characters. There's no major hidden secrets in the left nipple of Inosuke. There's none of that stuff. And while that's generally what I'm looking for in an anime, I get so hyped by that style character. Seeing a complete opposite, but honing it to such a degree, is beautiful by its own right. And speaking of honing the simple things to the max, can I talk about the animation and the music? God damn! This thing blows every other shonen anime out of the water. I still think JoJo's is the best shonen adaptation of all time, but that's because of the spunk that's present in every moment. As far as the basics, the breathtaking animation, the beautiful choreography, the unbelievable sound design, and the breathtaking music in every episode, Kimetsu no Yaiba blows everything out of the water. I thought My Hero Academia had the best shonen adaptation, but oh boy, it doesn't stand a chance. This is a whole nother league. Again, in essence, that is just honing the basics to the nth degree, and that's exactly what this series is. This series hones literally every bit of it to its absolute purest form, and that is what makes Demon Slayer beautiful. So as far as overpowering an overpowered opponent, and I realized I had to explain my entire feelings over the majority of this show on a basic level to express why this fight is so great. But this bond between Tanjiro and Nezuko, the fact that Nezuko needed to help Tanjiro defeat him, the fact that Tanjiro had a flashback of his father, who he carried on in his heart this entire time, and it's because of that very dance that was present in his very family, that very family that he's fighting for every moment, that enabled him to unlock a new skill, that enabled him to control his breathing and start using some sort of firepower that we do not completely understand yet. But at the same time, as he's carrying his familial bonds, Nezuko is as well. As I've mentioned in the very beginning, a bond is forged two ways. It can start with one person, 100%, but unless the the other person puts theirs in, that bond will break. So Nezuko, the person who is being cared for by Tanjiro the entire time, she also gets a moment where her deceased mother appears to her and with tears in her eyes begs her to please wake up and do something to save Tanjiro. And that is when Nezuko unlocks a different move of her own, a demon blood art that all demons that are on a high enough level can use, and she does use it. And in the most beautiful punch, in the ultimate combination of insane character development on Nezuko's part, on Tanjiro's part, holding every bit and every theme that's present within the two of them and the bond that they share, fighting an opponent whose very existence is an antithesis to this bond, corny as it may seem, who put them through so much suffering, angst, and pain until this point. One moment of breathtaking animation, unfathomable ethereal music, and every ounce of passion from both Tanjiro and Nezuko are they able to defeat one of the 12 in this ultimate moment that not only progressed the narrative further, so it's actually meaningful as opposed to fighting some one-off demon that, well, didn't really make a difference in the long run. This attack that comes from nothing but passion, cleaving the head off this adversary that threatened his core principles with sheer power, also comes in complete contrast to how he defeated the previous demon he faced. When he fought Spider Mother Lady, he defeated her in the most serene way imaginable, showing his utmost control and how much he cares about every living thing, human or demon, dispatching her in the most respectful way imaginable, as opposed to here, which is raw passion coming exactly from what he was built up to be. This is a peak moment for a shonen protagonist. So, to answer the question briefly, how to overpower an overpowered protagonist? Well, on a power scaling standpoint, it's difficult. In this case, it's very much answered up by Tanjiro using this fire attack for the first time, which gives him beginner's raku, making the first time he uses any attack dynamically more powerful than future times. But in accurate scaling turns, you got the combination of Spider Dude not taking him seriously enough, as well as Nezuko popping in with the surprise explosives, and Tanjiro pushing himself far past his limits in this strike in order to defeat this opponent. But the reason why this fight is great, and this is an answer to every how to overpower an overpowered opponent, it cannot purely come from power. If it comes from power to some extent, it undermines the opponent he's facing. If he overpowers the overpowered opponent with sheer might, well then, that opponent is not per se overpowered. I say this from a protagonist standpoint, because as I've mentioned, Escanor overpowers Estarossa in the most savage, beautiful way possible. But the other two fights I've mentioned, Luffy versus Katakuri as well as Naruto versus Pain, neither were won from a pure power standpoint. Both Pain and Katakuri were stronger than Naruto and Luffy during those individual fights. Naruto fought Pain after he annihilated the entire Leaf Village and every shinobi there except for Guy, expending vast amounts of chakra. Aside from that, he entered the fight with a surprise attack, defeating one of the Pain bodies. Also, he had an insane amount of intel on the Pain bodies before entering the fight. Also, Pain actually beat him, and then Hinata fought Pain for a couple of seconds, which pushed Naruto over the brink to go crazy nine-tailed fox mode. On a pure one-on-one, Pain was stronger than Naruto. Naruto overpowered him because it was all the passion of the entire Leaf Village, and he even got flashbacks of his dead father coming to him saying, "I believe in you, kiddo," as well as so much more that made this fight great. And to top it all off, he won with the Talk no Jutsu, which is made fun of, yes, but the point is, this is the legacy of Jiraiya that passed on to Naruto. This was a fight between the two students and the two philosophies that opposed each other there, and that's what made Naruto versus Pain great. In my analysis on Luffy versus Katakuri, I pointed out how it's not purely a power scalable fight either. Katakuri was far stronger than Luffy. However, Luffy, who had actual familial bonds, stood up every time Katakuri knocked him down again and again and again. Whereas the first time Katakuri was knocked down, he was down for the count because he had nothing that brought him back to his feet. Katakuri was undeniably more powerful than Luffy was, and anyone who saw the fight would agree to this. But the fight meant so much more because Luffy overpowered this overpowered opponent, not through raw power, but through everything else that made this fight as incredible as it was. Tanjiro versus this 12 dude is beautiful for that reason as well. It's not purely from the power scaling perspective. It's every theme of the show that collided into a beautiful moment right here. That's why I needed to do a little synopsis of why I find this show so beautiful before expressing why this scene is so great. The reason why Mob Psycho and One Punch Man are two stories about how to overpower an overpowered opponent is because it's not the power that actually matters. It's the feelings behind the different characters, and it's the psychology behind Mob and Saitama that push it forward. Being that this fight was not won because, oh, Tanjiro leveled up and is now stronger than his opponent, that is exactly how to overpower an overpowered opponent. That is why Tanjiro, despite all the generic implants you could think think of to put into this bastard, he is a master of this, because simplicity is the hardest thing to master, and Demon Slayer mastered simplicity. And it's because of the simple natures and simple attributes of the different characters that Demon Slayer, along with perfecting its animation and music, has so much heart. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you did enjoy this video. Leave a like if you did. Again, 50,000 likes and the next OP analysis comes out within a week. And subscribe if you're interested in future anime, analysis, or satire content. Also, if you really want me to make more Demon Slayer content, I am more than eager to make videos on Boreface as well as Lightning Pussy, who, as I've mentioned, I relate to on a spiritual level. I guess that's what it takes to get an anime to trend in the US on Twitter. This isn't some anime fan site. This is insanity. I don't know. I'm just so hyped. This past episode of Kimetsu no Yaiba was amazing. It made me feel alive. God damn it. It's been too long since an anime did this to me. Well, it's since Mob Psycho Season 2, but that's irrelevant. This was amazing. Link in the description to my Twitter. Feel free to follow me there. To my Patreon. Feel free to pledge to me there. I have a little join button now on my channel, which is very cool. Feel free to join and become a member to get special emojis and shiz. And also link in the description to my Twitch. I would like to start streaming. Feel free to follow me on Twitch for epic streams where I say I'm not exactly sure what yet, still working out the kinks and the strategy, but I would love to do it because I'd like to spend more time with y'all. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this video in the comments below, because I'm that guy that usually likes the completely psychotic anime characters and likes to delve into the psychologies of the absolute nutcases and psychos. And here I am praising an anime for its simplicity. It's a little different than the norm, but hey, simplicity is underrated. So have yourselves the most wonderful evening, and in the most simple way possible, remember to stay weird, fam.